Today I wanted to reflect a bit on Matthew chapter 6, especially the first half of it. In it, Jesus starts, this is during the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus starts by giving a list of people not to be like. Specifically, people who seek the attention of men. Of other people. He says, don't be like those who mourn and go on the side of their street and rend their clothes and cover their faces in ash and mourn loudly so that they will be seen by men. And he says, don't be like the hypocrites who blast a trumpet before themselves when they go to make alms in the temple. And he keeps giving all these different examples of people doing something because they want to be praised by men, by other humans. And he very clearly says, don't do these things, don't be like them, because they've received their reward. These people who go out and seek to be liked, I suppose, to be seen by their fellow humans, to be praised in these different ways, they have received their reward. They succeed. That's what Jesus tells us, that they succeed. He goes on to tell us that there are better ways. What he says is, because they succeed and receive that reward from humans here on earth, there will be no reward from our Father who is in heaven. He uses this imagery. He says, do not put your faith in things that give way to rust and moth, and houses where thieves break in and steal. Instead, put your faith in your Father in heaven, where rust and moth do not devour, and where thieves do not break in and steal. All of this kind of comes together to paint a kind of interesting picture, I think. So I don't think we need to say that the examples Jesus gives are the only examples. I think we'd be missing his point. I think his point is to lay out things that people do, things that we've seen people do for the wrong reason and for the sake of being recognized by other people. God is a just God. That's actually one of the first things. He says, do not do your justices to man. I have to remember the exact wording of that. I might put it here or something, I don't know. But he mentions justice in that, and saying because God is a just God, the reward we seek is the reward we will be given. So if we seek the reward of man, as Jesus says, that rust and moth devour and that thieves break in and steal, we will receive that which rust and moth devour and thieves break in and steal. But on the other hand, we could put our faith in what Jesus says, rust and moth do not devour, and thieves do not break in and steal. I don't know about you, but that imagery, the poetry in that, saying, here are these things that die and go away and can be taken from you. Those are the things that we seek in men. If we want approval from our friends, from our family, from our work, from other members of society, if that's what we're looking for, if that's the kind of thing, or if we want praise and honor, if those are the things we're going for from men, from other humans, we'll get that. We'll get just that. But those are things that rust and moth devour and thieves break in and steal. To follow the path of God, to follow our Father in heaven, those things are just the opposite. I think it's kind of leaning to say not just that thieves don't break in and steal, but thieves can't break in and steal. These are things, this is such a truly personal and gifted reward from God on high that it is yours. Now, he elaborates a little bit. He uses another analogy because he goes forward talking about the birds of the sky and the grass in the fields, saying, how much are the birds worth? And yet you don't hear them asking, where's my food and where is my home? Because God gives to them. And he says, what about the lilies of the field? You don't see the lilies of the field striving, who do no work, and yet adorn the fields. he says, if we look at these things, how much more are we to the Father who can think, who the Father loves beyond all else? How will he reward us? All of this can be applied very generally. Everybody can connect it to something in their life. This idea that if we go to men and seek the rewards of men, we will receive the rewards of men. But we could go to heaven and seek the rewards of heaven. Anybody can apply these metaphors to something in their life, I'm sure. Now, the general theme of my channel, I talk a lot about gender and gender theory because that's something I've struggled with. I struggle with gender dysphoria. When I hear this Bible verse, I generally go to the literal things that Jesus is talking about. When I give donations to charities, don't go out and make a big scene of it. When you're mourning, don't go make a big scene of it. All these things are said in the Bible passage. So those are the things that I think of. But what I thought of the other day when I was trying to think of this video is, what about our pain? With gender dysphoria, it's one thing that it's a really big thing that it has a lot to do with what other people think of us. For me, it has a lot to do with how I'm perceived. And I don't know about a lot of people out there, but there's a lot of stereotypes of what men are that I'm not like. And so it really bothers me when people just put me in that box of masculinity, because I don't naturally associate myself with that and with those stereotypes. I think that's a pretty common experience for people with gender dysphoria. What often leads to is these big shows of transition or of leading a different life. It becomes very dramatic. And I mean like a show. Like that desire for people to understand us more deeply beyond those stereotypes that we can't grasp association with or don't even want to associate with. It becomes a bit of a show. I'm not that. I'm this. Please see me as this. Understand me. It's a cry to our fellow man, to other people. I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong with that. I want to be clear about that. I think it's very natural and very psychologically typical. But calling my mind back to this Bible passage, it makes me think, what's my reward in heaven? So, okay, tangent. I've often had that thought because of my dysphoria, because of the discomfort I've had with my own body. I have had the thought before of what will I be like in heaven? We say that we'll have a glorified body. So my thought would be like, the thought that dysphoria gives often is the thought of, oh, well, maybe I'll have the body I want. Maybe all these things I don't like about myself and that I've had difficulty with, and the ways that has made other people perceive me wrong, maybe all those things will go away and I'll have what I really want in my body. And that there is what made this verse click to me, this Bible passage. Because the natural response is we want that connection with other people. We want that level of see me, understand. But if it becomes a big show like that for other humans to understand us, do we forsake our reward in heaven? Is what is so natural to grasp for and want in this world actually those things that rust and moth devour? Is it something fleeting that won't be as great a reward as we could have? So the question is, do we settle for that reward? Do we seek that reward? And like Jesus says, and or heavily implies at least, that reward will be received. So is that what I want? Or do I want the reward from our Father in heaven that is so much greater, so much more in depth, and so personal that it can't be taken from us, that rust and moth cannot devour? The problem is, that's really hard. I mean, it's an easy choice. It's an easy choice. I would want the greater reward. You know, I think about, oh, what will my glorified body be like? Will I be able to go to heaven and have just what I want? Knowing it's probably not what I imagine now. But knowing that God who knows me and knows what I really want, knows that personal, deep reward, that's an easy choice. I want that reward. Getting there is the hard part. You know, there's a debate about whether or not gender dysphoria is a mental illness or not. And that's a video for a whole nother time. But one thing that is a fact is that there is definite mental anguish. And so it makes it hard to live with. And something else that's a video for another time is how we treat that. Because despite all I said in this video, I'm not going to advocate for just suffering through your mental illness. My wife was diagnosed with depression, and I have seen her suffer for it. One of my brothers, my mother, a lot of my family, I have seen them suffer for their mental illness greatly. So, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any treatment. That is a video for another day. But what I think ought to be our goal is that we should understand that we don't need to put on the show. We don't need to crave that attention that we do crave, that it is very natural to desire. We should understand that isn't where our satisfaction is going to come from. And as a consolation in the struggle that really has to be fought through to get to the end of, we have been told that we'll receive our reward that is far greater than any reward that rust and moth devour. Something deeply personal and ultimately satisfying. Yeah, I think that's a good consolation. Like I said, it's still hard. It's still hard. I think what it all will come around to in the end, you know, my kind of final points here, I guess. First of all, recognizing, like I've said in the past, it's a real human struggle. And real humans struggle. But that our instinct isn't always what's right. Our desire to jump forward and be praised by men isn't what's going to be the best reward. We can take that path and we will receive that reward. But God our Father in heaven desires to give us a much greater reward. And so we should at least take the time to consider it. That's the question we're left with. Do we want to receive our reward from men? Or do we want to receive the reward we've been promised by God? Again, another really rambly video. Probably went on for far too long. Let me know what you think in the comments. My goodness, I'm terrible at these outros. Look, I want to know what you guys think. Stick in the comments. If you guys like my thoughts, if you want to hear more of my thoughts, subscribe and ring the bell so that I'll be suggested to you again and you can hear my thoughts next time. If there's something that you want me to talk about, or if you have your own story or anything like that, stick it in the comments as well, because I want to know your guys' experience. If you want, I want to address it. Feel free to ask a question if you care about my thoughts. I imagine there are other people who feel the same way but have also struggled. If that's you, comment. Anyway, rambling again, going on for too long again. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace. Live long and prosper. I don't know. God loves you. Too. Yay. Gosh, I'm terrible.